like I said, I don't want to overstay my welcome. Somebody once told me that every year that goes by you're a coach, 10% of the fan base starts to hate you. And so after 20 years, they all, unless their kids or grandkids, probably hate me. So anyway, but it was a good run. It was a good run, and I'll say it one more time. I didn't want to be that hanger-oner that just kept, people just got sick of. Well, who knows? We'll see. I think it's stepping down and step away and reevaluate things and see where we're at.
Welcome back, everybody. Alex, Kirry, Lloyd, Cole. Welcome on into the KSL Sports Zone. Oh, we've been live for going on almost 4 hours here, Lloyd.
And we started about, 11:30, I think it was.
Yep. Yeah, and we've been
here as quick as we could.
We've been waiting on some official word. It's been basically rolled out by every news source now across the board. We're all in agreement that not only is Kyle Whittingham agreeing to become the 22nd head coach at the University of Michigan, but a 5-year deal is likely in place, and we'll, of course, wait for that official number and official word and all those things that come down. We were hoping that maybe there'd be something in the last few minutes here because of that 5 p.m. news dump that so many sports programs like to take advantage of. But here we are.
No, they don't do that. What are you talking about?
Come on.
That's not such a thing.
Now that we look back and hearing all the rumors that and the reports that this is a done deal, boy, how foolish were we during that press conference to not read more into all of the things that now make so much more sense. Kyle Whittingham, number one, not doing a press conference. That should be an indicator. Like, if you go out on a good note, that press conference happens that day. Everybody high-fives each other. Jamie's there, dabbing her eyes and talking about how sweet of an experience it's been. Instead, it was a totally different experience. It was Kyle Whittingham during a media scrum that felt just kind of improvised, like, yeah, I guess we got to do this now. And I'll talk about it. Yep, I am stepping down, stepping away, hitting the transfer portal, all these jokes that were made and that we awkwardly kind of looked at and went, oh, that's kind of interesting. Now, of course, it comes more into view. Somebody who's been covering this thing phenomenally. He is Josh Furlong, KSL Sports and KSL.com. You can read his byline there. And Josh, first of all, now that we hear all of these things and knew that this was going to be a possibility now in the past 24 hours, how wild is it to think that, hey, at that press conference, he was trying to tip us all off there?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because, like, this is one of those things where it wasn't kind of this linear thing, right? There was a lot of different things that happened. And so it was like the phrasing that he used of stepping down was 100% like, intentional, and there was a lot of different things that way. But even then, I don't think he had the destination of Michigan in mind, right? Like, I think this was more like he really did plan on more of a retirement, wanted to kind of step away from the game and then kind of see what his options were. And then as just this immediately kind of shifted, Michigan and Kyle Whittingham became kind of this thing. So I don't know if this was like he decided to step down and suddenly it was just like, I'm going to pursue Michigan. I think that was an option, but it's definitely something that's been crazy. And so, like, I think it's definitely changed the last few hours, few days. And so it'll be, it's been really interesting to watch because it really just didn't feel like it was going to be a legitimate thing based on kind of the conversations I'd had, the people I'd talked to. And now suddenly, like, within a 24-hour period, it really ramped up, and this became, a full-scale effort to try to get Kyle to Michigan.
Josh, as you see it play out the way it is now, do you feel like that there was something there that Utah didn't do in all this, that maybe he was not just, I think PK referred to it as being prodded out of the building. Don't want to say forced out or pushed out, but do you think that there was a little bit of a slight that he wasn't necessarily ready? He wanted to keep coaching at Utah, but they just didn't have that in mind for him?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely wanted to keep coaching, right? I think there was a feeling where, in this day and age where he expected the transfer portal to kind of change and not really be the same of him kind of attaching himself to the program as much just because it becomes much more transactional, that absolutely changed because it really wasn't. It became, you have some transactions and you get new players, but there was a lot more buy-in from the transfer portal than he expected. And so you kind of attach yourself to the love of the game even more, where it's just like, look, I've got Devin Dampier, I've got Bird Ficklin. I can see a path forward where, we finished 10-2 this year, but we can move forward and actually do more. And so I think there was this desire where, hey, I can do it. I can finish through my contract, which goes till 2027. There's some options there. And my understanding is the staff was partially okay with it, right? Like there wasn't any real tense feelings in terms of, Kyle, you got to get out the door. But I think the more that the university and Kyle kind of went down this path, it just realized this wasn't going to work. Utah at one point needed to kind of look to its future being Morgan. And look, Kyle did part of this to himself in some respects by wanting Kyle and Morgan to have the head coach in waiting. And so it's this tough situation where did Kyle make his own bed, right? Like, are you doing something where, you're not giving yourself an out now because you've named your successor, obviously trying to set him up for success, but then you wanted to hang on too long and kind of see this thing through. So it's a tough situation. I don't think it's a full force out. I think it was still kind of a mutual, but definitely more prodding, like PK said, where it's not fully the same situation of he wanted to be, done, right? Like he wanted to be done, but at the same time, he still wanted to keep coaching at the same time. It's convoluted, honestly, and that's what makes this so complicated.
I totally understand the both sides of it. Obviously, Kyle Whittingham, we get that feeling that he wasn't ready. We've talked about it ad nauseum, and I understand Utah's kind of side of it a little bit as well, where Morgan Scally, he's been in the coach in waiting. He's you probably start to hit a point where he's getting antsy. He's done an amazing job with that defense. He's starting to get. I'm sure job offers are starting to come in, getting interest from other programs as well. So there's, both sides are on a little bit of a time clock. What is the, now Morgan is, you have both sides probably. As I mentioned it earlier, I said it was kind of like, it feels like the Jerry Maguire where he's calling in, trying to keep players, and so is Bob Sugar trying to keep players, and everybody's is working, working the phone lines to keep all players, coaches, you name it. And what is on Morgan's short list? What's the important thing for Morgan Scally to do to make sure, the University of Utah is right where they need to be?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the simple answer there is just consistency, right? They've obviously built a great coaching staff. They've built a great recruiting base to be able to build off of. And if they can at least keep a majority of that, I think you're going to be okay. And that's kind of where he's going to have to focus. Obviously, it's first going to start with the coaches because the transfer portal ultimately doesn't open until January 2nd. So you have a little bit of time, though guys can declare for that right now. But you've got to be able to make sure you've got the coaching staff there. And my understanding, too, is that Kyle's probably not going to be coaching this game in Las Vegas. And so now suddenly Morgan becomes the head coach immediately of the bowl game. And so does he name his defensive coordinator? Does he push to keep Jason Beck to be his offensive coordinator? I know Jason Beck has been rumored to go with Kyle, but I wonder if it's moving a little bit quicker to make sure that you can get some consistency there, kind of bring some stability. And so for me, there's a lot of that, right? Like Morgan has to act fast in terms of being able to keep a coaching staff together, and then you deal with the fallout of the players and everything there. The reality is Michigan, is a blue blood, right? Like we get it. Like we understand it. Like I think there's going to be players from Utah that are attractive, that are going to want to come to Utah. But at the same time, Kyle doesn't have to pull from Utah necessarily to go for the players, right? I think for me, the understanding is that there's more of a desire to pull coaches and bring in some of his staff because Kyle's never really branched out that far with his coaching staff. He's always kind of kept it pretty inside. He's never built up this huge connection of people around the country that he wants to go to. Morgan has done a much better job of trying to be able to get involved that way. Kyle's kind of stayed pretty insulated and done it. So he's going to look at BYU. He's going to look at Utah for his coaching staffs. And so for me, the two schools here, they're going to have to play a game of fighting off, Jay Hill. They're going to have to fight off Jason Beck. There's going to be some other position coaches that you're going to have to fight off. And then you deal with the fallout after that. But that, to me, remains job one for Morgan Scally. It's now going to be the job for Kalani Sitake and BYU. It's going to be a tough situation. And I think that's the real ramifications that are going to have the biggest impact as of right now.
We talked about the BYU effect and how that would the possibility of Jay Hill leaving and going to be the DC for Kyle at Michigan. And, we've put ourselves down that road pretty quickly because, reports are saying that, but they've obviously got to figure out the coaching staff first the head coach, and then after that. But the reality is that Jay Hill and Kyle Whittingham are tied together so much and have been so much of their career. what are the odds that Jay Hill goes to Michigan? That's not just the number one guy, but that's the guy who Kyle Whittingham goes, I'm doing this because I feel like Jay Hill's going to be the guy.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this isn't just one of those things where it's like, oh, he knows Jay Hill, and obviously they have a connection. I mean, this is more deeply rooted in obviously their connection, but I think also the Kalani Sitake deal, right? Like, you look at this where when he spurned Penn State and decided to stay at BYU, they locked him in for a long time, and I think there was many that believed that Jay Hill was going to kind of be the heir apparent there as well. Now suddenly you kind of have to look at the table and say, hey, I'm not going to be anything past a defensive coordinator for quite a while. Obviously, it's a lateral move to some extent. Obviously, it's an upgrade because you're going to a blue blood, but you're moving now into a situation where maybe there's a better path. Now you look at Jay Hill as the guy that now can orchestrate what many would feel is a Big Ten defense. You pair that with Kyle Whittingham, where they already know things. Now you get even better recruits than you've had at BYU or at Utah. You now have a path where potentially Kyle's not going to stay at Michigan forever, right? He's either going to retire or, this fizzles out and it's not a great thing. Maybe this becomes an opportunity where Jay Hill steps in, and now you've instantly increased your trajectory as a coach if it goes well, and now you could potentially take over at Michigan. You've got potential other jobs available to you because you've done it there. To me, this feels like a major – like, more so than even Jason Beck, Jay Hill feels like the guy that you're going to circle as number one, right? Because this just has that more of a connection, and it seems like it can work even 10 with Jay Hill.
How much pressure is now on Morgan Scalley, Josh? The thing is, like, the way things have set up, the way that, the optics of this whole thing with Kyle Whittingham looking at whether he was pushed out or prodded, however you want to put it, doesn't really matter. But the pressure now is because if Utah goes and lays an egg next year, all of a sudden it's like, well, we had Kyle Whittingham right there, and he wanted to stay. He wanted to coach, and all of a sudden we're back to 5-7 or worse. And that's not to say that's what's going to happen, but it feels like that pressure is going to be. Not that it's not a pressure job anyways, coaching college football, but it feels like that's going to be ramped up to like a 10.
Yeah, I mean, there was always going to be pressure with him being the head coach in waiting and taking over for a legend like Kyle Whittingham. And I think that's still going to remain and maybe amp up even more. But to me, I think the biggest pressure is now on the Utah administration, because now if this doesn't work, whether it's nudged, prodded, forced out, whatever adjective we want to call, you now essentially got rid of a head coach that was a very successful coach for one that you still ultimately don't know. Now, at the end of the day, Morgan Scalley has been doing a ton of the planning. He's been involved in a lot of these things for a long time, right? Like, there really was a belief that Kyle was retiring because he had turned over a lot of the stuff to Morgan Scalley. And so I don't know that there's going to be this huge wholesale change, barring he has to, bring in a whole new staff and players and that kind of stuff. But I think the pressure's still there for him. But I honestly think this comes down to more of the administration, because you do have to say, we made the right decision. We looked to the future. It paid out. Great. Michigan got another great quality head coach. And if he's committed to coaching for 5 years, so be it. But you kind of have to pair it that way. If it doesn't work, this blows up in Mark Harlan's face. And now what do you do, right? Like, you just shoved out a legend and you didn't know what you were going to get. It's tough optics to be able to manage. And I don't know that falls more on Morgan than it does on the administration.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Spot on.
Yeah. And on top of it, like, it just brings more focus to the fact that you may have botched it because he takes the job. And then he goes, so that he takes that job, it becomes even more like, hey, there may have been some meat on that bone. You talk about whether or not you have the right coach or not, or the best coach. I know that it was awkward. I mean, how many years? I can't tell you how many times I played in these charity golf events, and Morgan would be there and Coach Witt would be there, and they would talk about the coaches, and he'd be like, yeah, blah, 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 as the head coach, and then this guy's going to be taking over for me pretty soon here. And, like, it's been like that for years, Josh. We've watched them do this back and forth dance where they've been, kind of halfway promising it, and then it was official, and then it wasn't official anymore, and then they put it back in the contract. Everybody at some point goes, yeah, you do have to rip that Band-Aid off. The problem is when you see him go straight to not just a big program, like the winningest program in the history of college football, the most wins ever in college football, Michigan, and he goes there and then takes a bunch of people there with you. Who are some people that you're looking at and you go, I'd be worried that person would go from the staff too, not just the Jason Beck move, but also maybe some others that could be in there?
Yeah, the biggest one for me is probably Jim Harding, so the Utah's offensive line coach.
Right.
He's got a big connection to Michigan. If I'm not mistaken, his wife is from Michigan, and so that could bring you back home. I know they've built a great home here in Utah, and they love it here. But if you get an opportunity to go home and, this is an opportunity where you can recruit at a high level, especially on an offensive line where that's kind of treated as kind of the creme de la creme, that's a great opportunity. I do know, though, that Michigan does have a really solid alum that is coaching there, and so maybe there's the potential that he doesn't get there. I've had some off the record conversations that may lead to him potentially staying versus going. So, there's things happening, I'll say. But at the same time, he's a guy that you look at that if you lose him, where do some of these recruits go, especially Kelvin Obot, Utah's first 5-star recruit? Does he follow? I don't know if that's the case, but, Jim is probably the number one. There's potential that you could lose Lewis Powell. They've had a great connection. I do believe that Utah is going to be pretty set in their defense. A lot of them, obviously have worked with Morgan. They love Morgan. So I don't know if that's a big area where Utah is going to look or Kyle would look. But I think, it ultimately comes down to Jason Beck. It's going to come down to Jim Harding and maybe somebody else. But I think, look, if you lose them, I don't want to say it's the end of the world. It obviously would suck.
Yep.
It wouldn't be a great situation, but I don't know if it's the end of the world. You can find guys, they've built people up. Isaac Asiata could, in theory, take over as an offensive line coach. There's options. It would just be a much bigger hurdle for Morgan to step up to in his first season. So there's that. Obviously, there's other guys at BYU that are going to have an impact there as well. But, I'm not as connected there to understand some of those things. But I think it would still be a situation where he's going to look at both of these programs and he's going to try to pull the best people that he knows and try to get them in with him.
Josh Furlong, you can read his byline at KSLSports.com, and you read him over at KSL.com. And Josh does a phenomenal job covering the Utes. Has done it for a lot of years. Now what, from the standpoint just like of this next week as they head to Vegas for the Vegas Bowl? The reports are that Kyle's going to be going down there to talk to the team about it, and then likely heading out of town to join Michigan down in Orlando for their Citrus Bowl appearance. What have you heard of that? And how does this impact like the immediate, like how this team performs in this bowl game? Good news is Nebraska's more of a messy buddy on the planet. So in the end, it might not necessarily matter from the end of the game standpoint, but what are you hearing about how they're going to handle this thing with the coaching at the Vegas Bowl?
Yeah, I think it plays out exactly like you said. I think Michigan wants Kyle to be at the bowl game, their bowl game, wants them to be acclimated to the program, gets there. So it's in all likelihood that Kyle has coached his last game as a member of the Utah program. And so you will have, Morgan Skelly taking over officially as head coach. That wasn't supposed to happen until the new year, but it looks like this will be his first full game. So to me, this feels kind of, I don't know if loyalty is the right word, but I think this could be a situation where maybe there are some players that were more loyal to Kyle, and maybe that puts them in more of a funk going into this game. But I do believe that a majority of the players and the coaching staff have all rallied around Morgan. This is the guy that they love. They knew that this was going to happen. So I don't know that there's going to be necessarily anything that changes other than now kind of that big motivating factor of, hey, we want to win one for the guy as he goes out. So, talking to him last week, a lot of the players said that. Like, they talked about wanting to send Kyle Whittingham out with a win. Does that change the optics now of where this becomes just another meaningless bowl, or is this now another rallying cry for Morgan and saying, hey, let's go out on a high note for him and kind of start his career out on a better path? So, look, there's a lot of motivating factors you can have here. Bowl games are always tough to gauge. But I don't think there's any shortage of situations where you can find motivation, but I think you can also find ways to kind of take yourself out of this too based on the news and the distractions. So as if Vegas isn't a distraction alone.
I know.
So, look, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be entertaining. Instead of seeing Kyle out the last time, you maybe get your first opportunity at Morgan. So, it's still a great opportunity for the fans that are traveling. It's just gonna be a different one.
Do you think, Josh, are we going to hear from, I guess, Mark Harlan anytime soon? You think right now, I mean, the more you don't hear from Mark Harlan, it just feels like
people are going to want answers for sure.
Yeah, people want answers, and they wanted answers. They got the answers on the whole, private equity thing before this whole thing went down with the following Friday with Kyle Whittingham. But I feel like people want to hear from Mark Harlan, and do you think that happens anytime soon?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, just kind of the conversations that I've had with different people. I don't think Utah likes to stick its neck out there in these types of things. They like to just let it run its course. With that said, this would be a perfect time to do that. At the very least, it's supporting Morgan and giving him kind of, if he's already got his staff, somewhat laid out, it's moving with that quickly and giving him the support that he needs. That way, maybe before the bowl game to say, hey, Colton Swan's going to be the DC or this guy's going to be that. Like, if they can maybe give that I feel like gives much more of a steadying of the ship type thing. I quite honestly, I don't know that you're going to hear from Mark Harlan on this. I would be very surprised, let's say. So I think Utah's just going to let it run its course. It's going to be, this is a Michigan thing. We handle what we have. We already have our head coach. We don't really have to worry about what Kyle does. But, it definitely would be something to hear publicly why the administration felt the need that they did. And I don't know that we're going to get that on a public level.
Josh Furlong. Josh, we appreciate it, man. As always, always on top of anything University of Utah athletics related. Josh, thanks for the updates. And, man, we're going to try to wrap our heads around this thing. And I know when it goes official, it's going to be even more bonkers. So we appreciate it, man. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
There you go. Josh Furlong. Yeah, Mark Harlan's going to have some splaining to do.
Yeah, and you know what? Him saying what he did about the coaching staff, obviously Michigan players are – They have the pick of the litter when it comes to recruits.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily. Don't get me wrong. There will be that 5-star he mentioned about that they just got offensive lineman, their first 5-star ever.
Mm-hmm.
I could totally see that being something. Maybe somebody like and I only thought of it because I saw Will Snowden quote tweet the news or whatever, and like, wow, what a big hire for Michigan. It's like, oh well, maybe Smith Snowden, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know how much Smith have another 2 years.
I think he does.
Close to 2? Yeah.
Yeah.
Obot.
But
Kelvin Obot. That's the 5-star lineman.
Yeah, they have, Michigan has the pick of the litter, so I don't know how much they're taking as far as players. But staff, absolutely.
Yeah.
They are going to be looking at staff, and it's guys who Kyle Whittingham's comfortable. We've talked about it. His inner circle is very tight, and so that he will look at Utah and BYU, and like we've said it all day long, it'll be a domino.
Well, we're gonna take another break here, and then we'll come back. I think
we're still working on some.
We still got some stuff.
Yeah,
let's take a quick break because I think we have some more folks we want to talk to about this. Get involved, and we're still waiting for the official word. I mean, it's one of those things where it's a done deal, but it's not because we're in the news business and we don't want to say that it's a done deal until it's actually officially a deal. So.
Hey, not normal. I'm on the other side of the glass working this stuff, and now on this side of the glass trying to
do both. That's fine. That's fine. We'll take a quick break here. We'll come back and we'll get you wrapped up with this news, and we'll get you some more insights here, as many as we can get, walking up to the official announcement of Kyle Whittingham. So we'll see. More to go around the corner. Kyle Whittingham is poised to be the next head football coach at Michigan. Sources reporting it's a 5-year deal. We'll have to find out more information about it, but when it becomes official, you'll hear it right here on 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Well, like I said, I don't want to overstay my welcome. Somebody once told me that every year that goes by you're a coach, 10% of the fan base starts to hate you. And so after 20 years, they all, plus their kids and grandkids, probably hate me. So anyway, but it was a good run. It was a good run. And I'll say it one more time. I didn't want to be that hanger-oner that just kept, people just got sick of it.
Oh, for all those folks out there who wanted Kyle Whittingham out the door, careful what you wish for, because it's not just about sending him out the door. What makes it different, Lloyd Cole, is sending him out the door when he was ready to coach for a longer period of time, sending him out the door when he wasn't ready to be done, and now Kyle Whittingham is set to become the next head coach of the University of Michigan, according to all these sources that are involved. Now, it's gotten to the point now where that we even have heard tale of a timeline, a possible 5-year deal. Deal that, according to all these other sources, also is in the books, ready to go. I don't know. These days, you got to sign around the DocuSign, right? Could do all that virtually. Come on. Send the DocuSign over. I'll have my people sign it. Let's take a look at it. You go through there. You hit the old initial button. It's fine. So Kyle Whittingham looking likely that he's going to become Michigan's 22nd head coach officially at the end of today. So what does that mean? Well, it means that from all the sources that we've heard, and I think we chatted with Tony Garcia from the Detroit Free Press who mentioned something about this, and I kind of was like, no way, because the idea was, hey, Kyle Whittingham will be headed to Las Vegas to reveal the idea of him being the head coach of the University of Michigan, and then he'll head out to Orlando and won't coach, and it'll be officially the first time Morgan Scalley will be the head coach at the University of Utah. It'll be for the bowl game, but whether or not that was, I was wondering too. It might have been because they were just heading down the road. I mean, that was it. They're flying out to Vegas, or they're already in Vegas, and he was going to address the team and then fly out to Orlando. So that's the kind of timeline I think that people are looking at. And maybe they're waiting for him to have that discussion with the team, and then they'll make it official. I doubt it, just because these days, once the news gets leaked to the level that it has been, then I think a lot of these programs just go, hey, look, let's rip the Band-Aid off here, get the press release ready. And if you're Michigan, you can't wait to send that press release out about something non-scandal related. In fact, it's the exact opposite. You've got a guy who comes with no scandals in Kyle Whittingham. You got a guy who comes along, as somebody pointed out earlier in the day, hey, I just checked Kyle Whittingham's Instagram. He only follows his wife and daughters and hasn't posted in 10 years. I think we're good. I think that's phenomenal. It's a great way to look at it. That might be the reverse way of doing the investigatory work on a background. You're like, I want to see no posts from you in the back. I want to see zero interaction with fans. I don't want you.
You haven't posted in 10 years. Perfect. You're perfect. You're hired.
Jamie is your number one follow on Instagram. Perfect. We don't have to worry about you. And I think that that's a huge part of it. We chatted with Tony Garcia earlier from the Detroit Free Press, and he goes, that's so much of this deal is that they just have to get in the clear on how they look with this whole thing. Joining us on the program right now, Frank Dolce, live with us. Nice to join us, Frank, on short notice. Quite a day here, as it's now almost official that Kyle Whittingham is going to be the next head coach of Michigan football. What do they get with Kyle Whittingham?
Well, they get someone who understands how to build a football program based on foundational principles, based on what I think Big Ten football is all about, in terms of blue-collar kind of work ethic, win at the line of scrimmage, run the football, play devastating defensive football, and without, like you guys were talking about, without any of the nonsense. I mean, he's completely 100% focused on football, on his players, on creating an atmosphere for success, and nothing else.
Frank, obviously we've discussed it, since 11:30 we've been on kind of talking about this is that press conference, and I know, the press conference seemed a little odd to you, the whole stepping down, is he retiring? It had a feel of, obviously speculating of, was he pushed? Was he, nudged? Whatever. Everybody has a different.
Talking about transfer portals.
And now he's talking transfer portals. He's a free agent, and how everything went, kind of went down. What is this? The way it's all gone down. What does this mean for, I guess, for Kyle Whittingham's legacy with the University of Utah? I mean, because. I mean, if he goes and he does, and if Utah is fine and they go, they're winning and it's not a problem, then it's, Utah fans I think are fine. But as soon as they have a bad season, which who knows, it could be this season. You never know what it's going to be like. And all of a sudden it's like, well, we had Kyle Whittingham just right there. So what does this mean for Kyle Whittingham's legacy with the University of Utah?
It means zero. I mean, his legacy with the University of Utah is on such solid foundation. I mean, it would take a scandal unlike you've heard any other to damage his reputation at Utah. Drive around Salt Lake City, drive up and down I-15, and there are billboards saying, "Thank you, Coach Whittingham. Thank you, Coach Whittingham." Nope, that never happens to any coach.
I thought you were going to bring up the Kyle Whittingham, "Give me your kidney." Billboards.
That one too. Yeah. No, I mean, there's nothing surrounding him except for adoration from the city, from the university, from the program. Look, I don't know what happened on the inside and why he decided to retire at this time. It never felt right to me. Like the person who I know is Coach Whittingham and his competitiveness and his desire to be in the game, and him stepping away didn't ever really sit right. But he he just left the university at the right time. And not only did he leave the university at the right time, he left the university on very solid footing in terms of a football program. Great coaching staff in place. We'll see what happens there. I mean, there might be a few pieces moved around here and there. A guy in Morgan Scally who has learned under the best for his entire career. If there's a guy who hasn't been a head coach as prepared as Morgan Scally to take over, I don't know who it is. I can't think of anyone who's been better prepared under the scenario with Coach Whittingham at the helm. And so his legacy at the University of Utah has been forged over the last 21 years or so. And it goes, him taking the next step in his career leaves his legacy undamaged at the University of Utah.
Frank, what is Morgan Scally now going to go through as he may get a part of his coaching staff maybe picked apart a little bit? The Jason Beck piece, people are already talking about that could be, that he'd be Witt's guy at Michigan before he would, if he got that opportunity. And it's not crazy to think. It's not like he's been here less than 365 days. So
yeah.
in that case, if those pieces do move, how much of a challenge is Morgan Scally going to have right out of the gate, having to find not just a guy to replace him at the DC spot, but the OC as well?
I think the DC spot is there. There's probably a little higher comfort level there because, Coach, it started before Coach Whittingham a little bit, but Coach Whittingham is the architect of that defense, and whoever has coached underneath him has worked under that same system, maybe tweaking things here and there a little bit. Times have changed. I mean, and defense has evolved a little bit, but the basics are the same, and that's ingrained in the program. So the next piece in the puzzle, Morgan Scally isn't leaving. So I think there's a high level of comfort on what's going to happen on the defensive side. And even if you bring along a guy that doesn't have as much experience running a defense, the guy is there. I mean, Morgan Scally is there. So I think there's a high comfort level in being able to find the right person for the defensive side. And, that's just my assumption. We saw Coach Sitake struggle with that his first few years, and he's a guy that ran the defense for Kyle Whittingham. So it's not that it's like, it's not that it's going to be all roses, but I think there's a comfort level on the defensive side. Offensively, there's two guys in the state that I would look at if I were Kyle Whittingham moving on offensively, defensively. And they're names everybody's talking about. It's Jason Beck and it's Jay Hill. I mean, those are the two guys that I would take from the state to go with them to Michigan. So if you're talking on the offensive side for Morgan Scally, you know what? You just get thrown into the fire. And this is the first big test for Morgan Scally, finding the guy that can keep the continuity going on the offensive side. Because what we saw out of this offensive football team for 90% of the season was incredible productivity, the ability to score, and the ability to make up when the defense was struggling a little bit. that hasn't necessarily been the hallmark of Utah football, and they got it this year. And so it's finding the right guy to maintain that continuity. There's a lot of good offensive football coaches out there. The University of Utah is at a level where when you say, if Morgan Scalley said, hey, offensive coordinator position open, I mean, he's going to have a wealth of talent to choose from. And it's just finding that right piece on the offensive side. I think there'll be plenty of opportunity to find the right guy.
Frank, how quickly does Michigan become immediately able to not just compete, but to do the two big ones, which is beat Ohio State and then get back to that national championship game? I mean, those are dreams for Kyle Whittingham, right? I mean, this is a guy who got to two Rose Bowls, and I know it irked him that he didn't win those two games, despite the fact that he was a championship level coach. I mean, having designs on a national championship, I don't know if there's a better place to be able to do it.
The resources available at Michigan are different, and I think they're probably untapped. And there may be a new excitement about that football program with this hire. And so I would say, is it too much to ask in the first year? Probably. Yeah. I mean, there's a whole culture change that has to occur. And from what I understand, the culture inside the building suffered a little bit in the last year. Yeah. And we saw the craziness that's ensued. So, but here's what Coach Whittingham will do. He'll implement the right culture. And guess what? Not everybody's going to fit in that culture. And that's when people start, moving along, and you get the right people on the bus. That's what his job number one is, to get the culture right inside the building. And that, like I said earlier, that culture fits. Like, it's a pack your lunch pail, go to work mentality. And once you match that with the ability to attract talent at the University of Michigan, I mean, that seems like a pretty lethal combination to me. And so I would not be surprised to see him, first of all, institute that culture and noticeable year one opposing teams saying, when you play Michigan, you're in a dogfight. Like that is a dogfight. And then going from there, finding himself in a position to win conference championships, to compete in playoff games, and find himself maybe at the highest level in college football.
Frank, I have to imagine. I mean, obviously, we talked about Beck being high on the list. Witt has to absolutely love that offense that he's been able to had on as part of his team. Obviously, Jay Hill, you mentioned. Jim Harding feels like. I mean, he's I think Northwest Ohio guy. I think is what he's from that area. Like, it feels like Jim Harding. What he's done offensively, you got two guys going to the NFL. That feels like a guy that Witt has to be looking at, taking with him.
Jim Harding is a very interesting position in this particular hire, because Michigan has a guy in place that is very highly regarded. and so, I mean, I think Jim Harding has done an amazing job at the University of Utah. And certainly there's a familiarity with him and with Coach Whittingham. But you have to look at the resources at Michigan as well. And that is one, I think, that is very interesting to look at. So I think Jim Harding would be an amazing hire, but I would say that one is, I guess I would just say it's interesting, because I think there's super talented individual in place at Michigan.
Grant Newsome, is he the offensive line coach? Grant Newsome, I think he's the guy who won as a Michigan dude. He's been there for a few years. I think his third year as the O-line coach. But yeah, they love him there. I mean, and they it's interesting too, because I think, and I can't remember who we were talking with earlier, Frank, they were saying, but if Kyle Whittingham comes, it's different than hiring another guy who's like a young 38-year-old who they say, hey, by the way, you're keeping these guys. It might be a different situation. Maybe Kyle is able to say, I want to be able to make every position every coaching assistant, analyst, everything down to the grad assistants, I'm going to be able to bring whomever I please. I would imagine he'd be able to have some of that, but there are also some really talented guys. I mean, like, think about how, and again, even like the Obot kid, who was the 5-star commit to Utah as an offensive lineman, first 5-star guy in Utah history, and he comes out and he's an O lineman. And guess what? They churn out offensive linemen to the NFL at Michigan as well. So Jim Harding does a great job.
Man.
It's tempting to think of being a Michigan man over, not just that. It's the NIL stuff that's involved with all of it, Frank. It's just all sorts of complicated, and it's an interesting time. I never would have thought in a million years we'd see a navy blue hat with an M on it with Coach Whittingham at the helm.
That's the truth. But the landscape of college football has changed, like you said. It's not. I mean, it's college football, but it's not. It's really interesting how it's unfolding. And I mean, let's look at what Texas Tech did this year. I mean, Texas Tech with a $30 million roster finds themselves in the playoffs when a year ago no one would have thought this team was headed to the playoffs. So resources now are much more significant. Resources have always been significant, but much more so in this NIL day and age. And the resources available at Michigan are going to give opportunities to surround yourself with talent. And so it would be really hard not to take that into consideration as a coach or as a student athlete when you're looking at what gives me the best opportunity to continue playing this game at the next level. And I think Utah has done an amazing job at the line of scrimmage on the offensive side. We've seen a lot of guys go and play and be very successful in the NFL. The issue is, like, if you took the number of Utah players in the NFL from the offensive line versus the number of Michigan players playing in the NFL from the offensive line, I think you'd see an interesting differential. And so when you talk about cranking out talent at the line of scrimmage, as good as Utah has been, Michigan may have an advantage there.
Yeah. Frank Dolce. Frank, did you have a good Christmas? We kind of interrupted your break. I'm sorry, man.
Frank always has a good
fantastic.
Christmas.
Listen. You didn't interrupt my break. I don't consider talking about football, talking about college football, and talking about one of my favorite people of all time, Coach Whittingham. I don't feel like that is an interruption at all. I do that anytime anybody called, especially you guys. When Lloyd called, I mean,
yes. Got to do it.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Checks in the mail, right. Frank. Checks in the mail, my man.
Frank Dolce. Frank, we appreciate it, man. Have a good rest of the break. And when it becomes official, obviously, we'll get back into it as the new year turns over. It's going to be quite an interesting one the rest of the way. So transfer portal opens up on the 2nd. Got to be ready.
Absolutely. Hey, you guys are the best. I hope you enjoyed your holidays. Happy New Year. If I don't talk to you before then, we'll catch up soon.
There you go. Frank Dolce, everybody.
Frank, keep your phone by you. I'll call you next week.
Oh, there you go. There's Frank. It's a weird thing. Like, some of these guys, Kyle Whittingham leaving there's a personal connection that a lot of folks are losing too. And you think about, it's a mixed bag when you talk to the media about Whit and the interviews that he does or doesn't give. But he's always been a freaking straight shooter. He doesn't mess around. He might be.
He's worked with everybody for so long. He's been in this market for so long.
He's one of the most quick. He is a quick-witted dude. He's funny, underrated funny, because people just see the tough guy act all the time. But the reality is he's one of the funniest guys in all of college football, and he keeps it under wraps. But I'm telling you,
Utah blows out Arizona State. What does he call PK? Calls him Sparky.
Yeah, hey Sparky. I mean, it's good to see you. No, he will give it right back to anybody. He does not care. So. But yeah, you could tell. I mean, Frank is like, yeah. I mean, it's one thing for Utah to lose a great coach. It's another one that there's a lot of people that are in this community. I mean, this is his community, man.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see how it goes. They just remodeled that house and everything. It's like, who cares? College football doesn't matter. The house will be there when you get back. It's fine.
You mentioned it's so strange to think of Kyle Whittingham wearing a a
Michigan
hat,
blue, yeah.
Michigan blue.
with that yellow iconic M on it. You think about the times when Harbaugh came into Rice Eccles and Whit beat him. You just don't you don't think to yourself, well, Kyle Whittingham will get that Michigan job one day. You just think to yourself, no, he's building something here.
No, and he's hitting that point in his career where like he's going to retire here. He will finish his career here, and then he's going to go off into the sunset. But Kyle Whittingham had a little more left in the tank.
Yep. All right, we'll take another quick break here. When we come back, we're going to chat with Trevor Riley, one of the former students of Kyle Whittingham.
He's been saying Kyle should take that Michigan job. He's been saying that.
He's been pounding the pavement.
Yeah, he has.
So we'll talk to Trevor next. He's never without opinions. Trevor Riley joins us next right here as we keep you going. And yes, it's all but totally official that Kyle Whittingham is the next coach at the University of Michigan. Reportedly a 5-year deal being reached between the two parties, and just takes Kyle having to break it to his former team and then likely going out to see his new team, Michigan, who's going to be playing in the Citrus Bowl in Orlando come next week. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Well, the program's in a good place right now. As I've said many times, after last season, just didn't sit right with anybody, particularly me. Came back and fortunately we were able to get the ship righted and everything's on track. The program, like I said, is in a good spot. Got good coaches. Coach Scally will come in and do a great job. Got good players. So now is the time.
Welcome back, everybody. Alex, Kirry, Lloyd, Cole. Our producer, Alex Napolis. Today we've been going for almost 4 hours on the news that Kyle Whittingham is going to become the head coach of the University of Michigan. Now being reported by not just multiple sources. Now the multiple sources are saying that it's a 5-year deal even. The official word from the University of Michigan or from Kyle Whittingham's camp. Yeah, which one do you think will come out first? Whit dying to get on social media and say the deal's done. He'll be the one breaking it?
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Nope. I bet he doesn't even have the password to his account anymore.
He has to reset.
He's locked out.
Jamie, you're going to get a code sent to your email. You tell me what that code is. I got to sign back into my
I
account.
can't send it to my Utah email because that doesn't work
That
anymore.
doesn't work anymore. Oh, shoot. Yeah. It's a weird time to do it, but, Kyle, the coaching carousel has its own timeline in college football, and Kyle Whittingham finding a gig at the University of Michigan after stepping down a couple of weeks ago. Not a total shock to us. I will say that I had multiple conversations going into the break of, yeah, I know that ship sailed. They're going to find somebody else. And I kept looking
hearing
at
people say,
I kept looking at Biff Poggi. I was like, this guy's not the guy. He's sleeveless in Ann Arbor. That's not happening, dude. Like, they're not going to allow this guy who is basically part of the staff. He looks like he'd be a problem too. Like, there's just no way. It's wild.
I know Kyle Whittingham has some gas in the tank. I did not think that, wanting to go deal with that Michigan headache would I didn't have that on my bingo card. I just didn't. And everybody said, "Oh, Kyle Whittingham, yeah, he would be absolutely great for the job." Absolutely, is he the perfect man for that job?
The things that shocked me during all of this was, one, that the Detroit Free Press guy, Tony Garcia, said, yeah, his camp reached out to Ann Arbor after the stepping down.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm stepping down today, but why don't you call
my people?
Why don't you call somebody? Because and tell them I'm available. Why not? And let's have that conversation. They didn't get Kenny Dillingham. They didn't get Kalen DeBoer. And frankly, Oklahoma losing to Alabama might have been the thing that triggered this job opening up for Kyle Whittingham. Maybe Kalen DeBoer would have taken that job. He says he wouldn't have.
They had to be hitting a point, by the way, that they really had to be like, okay, we need somebody. And I had, if it's 50 to 60 million, which is what's being reported,
for 5 years,
Kyle is getting paid.
Yeah. And he may have had to have been bought out at the University of Utah, too, just because he had that advisory role that he's probably saying, hey, if you want me to walk away from the advisory role, you got to buy me out of it. And I want you to buy me out of it because I got to find some other jobs here. It's like, isn't it sad to see an old head coach having to go back to work? It's like he's not putting on the Home Depot, bib. He's walking over to the most prestigious job in college football, or at least one of the 4 in all of college football. And imagine that Ryan Day versus Kyle Whittingham back and forth that they got to do at the Rose Bowl back in 22. And I love that matchup. I love the idea of Kyle Whittingham getting there. It's so weird to see his face next to that Michigan logo on TV, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Won't get used to it.
No, we'll see. I did want to get out to one of the biggest Michigan fans on the planet and let you know what Provo Dave thinks about Kyle Whittingham coming to Michigan because as a Michigan alum, he has a little bit of skin in that game. He might even actually have NIL skin that he's thrown into the game as well. But here's what Dave Portnoy took to social media to say. I think the cuss words are bleeped out, but guess what? This is the kind of guys you get, and he was pretty excited.
We are so back, I don't even know what to do about it. Listen, I was a little worried about this Michigan coaching search. Not gonna lie, I was saying, I hope we know what we're doing. I hope these guys in charge, I don't even know who that is, but I hope we have a plan because time is a ticking and I'm getting nervous. You saw Kalen DeBoer, no, I didn't want him. You saw Dillingham, didn't get offered. I was like, oh, I would have loved Dillingham. And then what happens? Kyle Whittingham. Yes, Kyle Whittingham from Utah. 2 decades at Utah. One of the greatest coaches in the history of college football. Listen, Provo Dave knows him well. He built a powerhouse, tough, physical, Michigan type football. I've heard Urban Meyer, he never dreamed this. I heard Urban Meyer whisper in production meetings at Big Noon Kickoff, man, that Whittingham's the best coach I've ever seen. And now he comes to Michigan. This isn't just rebuilding, restarting. This is the beginning of a dynasty. The Michigan ethos, the Michigan man mantra, it's back. This is an upgrade. I never wish ill will on anything. I never want my head coach to be having an affair with his executive assistant and then run into her house with a butter knife and threaten to kill himself in front of her and harm. Nobody wants that. But when you put your bet on a pillow, a Michigan man pillow at night, and you think how this thing shook out, honestly, it couldn't have shook out better. We now have one of the best coaches in the history of college football leading the best program in the history of college football. This thing, I couldn't be happier to welcome Kyle Whittingham to the Michigan Man family. He is an honorary instant Michigan man. And if I'm Ohio State, I'm not worried about the playoffs. I'm worried, will we ever beat this team again? It is great to be a Michigan Wolverine. Say it together. It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine. It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine.
I think he's excited.
Yeah.
You might be excited.
Just a little bit.
I love the hyperbole, though. The best coach, one of the best coaches in the history of college football, going to the best program in all of college football. You got to love the confidence from Provo Dave. Now, look, you can't deny the fact that Michigan, I mean, on paper, they have the most wins in college football history. And it's one of the few who have 1,000 wins, if not the only team who have 1,000 wins all time. And so
it's a legendary program.
Massive.
It is.
And
it's the blue blood of blue bloods.
If Kyle Whittingham is able to not just do well, but in that first 5 years, I say the first 5 years because 5 years he'll be 71. And a Kyle Whittingham 71 years old is the rest of us at 60. I'm convinced. And you could see them signing him up. He could do a solid 8 years at Michigan by the time it's all said and done. And if the deal is done today, like they're saying, and he has 5 years, you're only extending him for about 3 to be able to get there. So
I feel like he's gonna coach in this Michigan Ohio State rivalry, and he's gonna think it's tame compared to the Utah.
Oh, you know
rivalry.
what? I don't know about that. This is the game, dude. This isn't like. This one doesn't have a fun, quirky name to it. This is the game, dude.
Yep.
So, all right. Lloyd, you have fun?
You know what? I had a good time.
I don't think you and I have ever done almost 5 hours together.
No.
This
It
is
was
good.
it was fun.
Yeah.
We got to the point where they pretty much it's official.
Yeah.
We tried to make it as far as we could, and it's like, we got people come on that came on to talk about it. A big thanks to literally everybody on staff.
All of our staff, yep.
All of our staff. We had Frank Dolce check in. We checked in with a Michigan beat writer. Yeah. All of our insiders from Utah to BYU. Like, it was all hands on deck, and that's why you listen to the KSL Sports Zone, because nobody breaks it down and covers it better than us.
Okay. For Lloyd Cole, I'm Alex Kirry. Our producer today, Alex Napolis, nice enough to come in and also do some extra time as well.
Big time shout out to Alex Napolis. Hey, how was that sandwich, Alex? How was that ham?
Delicious.
I brought in
Ham
Alex a ham sandwich.
Yeah. Listen, Napolis and I have been talking about pozole and tamales, and I'm sure the ham sandwich comes in a distant third, but I'm sure it was good. It's fine. I'm going to go down.
No
you think I'm not
tamales,
gonna,
no pozole,
You
though.
think I'm not going to roll by the KSL fridge downstairs and have myself a gander? Some of that ham in the fridge?
I might go make me
Freaking
another
right.
ham sandwich.
Absolutely. All right. We appreciate you joining us here. You're going to get the biggest breakdowns, of course, right here on the KSL Sports Zone. A College Football Saturday Bowl edition is going to be tomorrow.
I'm sure they will be talking a little bit of Kyle Whittingham and Utah.
Just a
I don't
touch.
think it'll be just a BYU bowl breakdown. I think you're going to get a little bit of all of it.
We're going to get a lot, and we'll get you rolling there. So stay tuned in here. More to go, and you don't want to miss, of course, as we turn the corner on Monday as well. Across the station, you're going to get the full breakdowns, and we'll have a ton to talk about. So for Lloyd and Alex, I'm Alex. We'll see you next time, everybody. 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.